Story 1. My name is Ethan Woods. I'm 38 years old. I'm an architect. I live in Connecticut, in a town that's an hour from New York City without traffic. I have a wife, Evelyn, a son, Liam, who's 10, and a house I designed myself. A glass cube on a cliff, overlooking the ocean. I'm always proud of that house. I thought it was a symbol of my life, transparent, honest, solid. That morning started normally. I got up at 6, made coffee, went out on the terrace. The ocean was gray, waves crashing against the rocks below, wind salty. I stood there drinking coffee, thinking about a project I was submitting next week. Evelyn was still asleep. She'd come home late the night before, after a presentation for Julian Black's hotel. Julian was our friend, Liam's godfather, my biggest client. We'd been friends as families for about 10 years. I trusted him like myself. Probably more than myself, actually. At 7, my phone pinged. A message from Marcus. Marcus Stone and I went to college together, then he became a private investigator. We didn't see each other much, but we played poker a couple times a year. I opened the message, thinking he was inviting me to a game. There was a link in text. Ethan, old friend. Before you do anything stupid, watch this. I stumbled on it by accident while working another case. I'm really sorry. At first I didn't understand. What stupid things? What was he talking about? I clicked the link. A secure cloud archive opened. There were photos. Lots of them. Maybe 50. I sat down at my desk and started looking. First photo. Evelyn and Julian in a parking lot near his office in Stamford. She was wearing that dress I gave her for our anniversary. He had his hand on her waist. I thought, well, friends hug, it happens. Second. They're entering a hotel. Not a fancy one of those discreet places by the highway. I thought, maybe a business meeting? Stupid, I know, but I was still trying to find excuses back then. Then came photos with dates. 3 months ago. They're on a yacht. The yacht is called Nora, after his wife. She's laughing, head thrown back, he's feeding her strawberries. I hadn't seen her face like that since our honeymoon, 17 years ago. 2 months ago. They're by a lake where she went, for inspiration, for a project. She said she was alone, needed to think about a concept. And here they are, kissing at sunset. 1 month ago. That same parking lot, that same hotel. She's coming out, fixing her hair. He's following, buttoning his jacket. 1 week ago. They're in a restaurant, holding hands across the table. Looking at each other. I hadn't seen that look from her in 3 years. I sat there staring at these photos, and inside me, things started shutting down one by one. First my heart was just pounding, then I felt nauseous, then I got cold. I couldn't move, just stared at the screen and didn't believe it. 16 years of marriage, 10 years of friendship with Julian. We vacationed together, raised kids together, built businesses together. I'm his son's godfather, he's mine. And all this time, they were sleeping together behind my back. I didn't notice an hour passing. I came to when the front door clicked. Footsteps on the stairs, light, quick. Her footsteps. Ethan, you here? Her voice, so familiar, physically hurt to hear. Liam already left for school. I checked his backpack. You didn't have breakfast again? She came into the study. In her robe, disheveled, smelling like my shampoo. Smiling. You look pale. Bad news about the project? I looked at her and saw a stranger. An actress who'd been playing the loving wife for 16 years. No, everything's fine. Just tired. She came over, kissed the top of my head. I felt myself flinch. The disgust was so strong I almost pulled away. But I controlled it. I'm going to New York today, she said, fixing her hair in the mirror. Nora invited me to lunch, then I need to see a sculptor for that new lobby. Remember, I told you? Nora, Julian's wife, the woman they were both betraying. I wondered, does she know? Or is she as blind as I was? I remember, I said. My voice sounded steady, like nothing had happened. Good luck. She left. I heard her car start, heard her drive away. Only then did I exhale. Covered my face with my hands and sat like that for maybe 10 minutes. Then I opened my laptop and typed one word to Marcus. Let's meet. We met in the Bridgeport docks the next day. Marcus was sitting in his old pickup, drinking coffee from a thermos. A big guy, pushing 50, with gray stubble and perpetually tired eyes. He'd seen a lot in his line of work. Get in, he said, opening the door. I got in. He handed me an envelope. This is everything I could dig up in 2 days. Phone records, duplicate receipts, hotel charges. And the yacht rental from that weekend you stayed home with sick Liam. Remember? I remembered. Liam had a fever. Evelyn said she had to go to Boston urgently for a client, couldn't reschedule. I stayed with our son, gave him tea with raspberry jam, read him stories. And she was. I opened the envelope. Dry numbers, dates, addresses. She was spending our money? I asked. On hotels with him? Not just that. Look here. He pointed at a bank transfer printout. Julian transferred $230,000 into her personal account over the last 6 months. Small amounts, 10 to 15,000 at a time, through shell accounts from his company. He was siphoning money from his wife, Ethan. They're not just sleeping together, they're planning a future. I stared at the numbers, unable to process. Julian is paying my wife. My wife is taking money from my friend. I couldn't make it fit in my head. Why would she need his money? We have enough. Because your money you control. This is hers, personal, for a rainy day. She was preparing for your divorce. And she wanted a cushion. We weren't getting divorced. Marcus looked at me with pity. She was, Ethan. Maybe not tomorrow, but they had a plan. They were saving up so they could run off somewhere, start a new life where nobody knows them. A new life. And I was supposed to be left behind in the old one, with a broken heart and shattered trust. What do? I asked. Confront them? Make a scene in public? Then you lose. Marcus spoke calmly, like a doctor giving a diagnosis. A scene is your enemy. If you start yelling, breaking things, she'll run to a lawyer and take you for everything. You know Connecticut laws. In a divorce, the wife is protected. And if she can prove you're aggressive, that you threatened her, game over. I'm not aggressive. She's the one. Prove it. She has a witness? Julian. She has recordings of you yelling, if you lose it now. She has lawyers who can make you into a monster in a month. And what do you have? Photos of cheating? These days, nobody cares. A judge doesn't care who she slept with when it comes to money and custody. I fell silent. He was right. I'd heard stories of guys ending up with nothing because they acted like idiots. So what then? I asked. Your friends are time and information. Don't react, don't show you know anything. Play the hurt but loving husband. And dig deep. Julian's dirty in more ways than just in bed. I looked into his business. There's stuff there. He's crooked, Ethan. Really crooked. Marcus handed me a flash drive. This is the full story of his scams from the last 2 years. Skimping on materials, shady subcontractors, kickbacks. But that's small stuff. Here's the main thing. Remember that architecture competition for the Stamford development you won last year? Of course. My best project. That's when Julian and I got closer. He pushed for me on the board. Marcus snorted. He didn't push for you. He sank you. I found his emails. He was lobbying for another firm, from Boston. They had a kickback deal. You were supposed to lose. But I won. Yeah, you won. And you know why? Because your wife slept with the mayor of Stamford? No, because she slept with Julian and threatened to tell Nora everything if he didn't make sure you won. He got scared. Nora controls the shares. She has the majority. If she found out about the affair, she'd throw him out. He pushed your project through to shut Evelyn up. You got that contract not because you're a talented architect, Ethan. You got it because your wife was fucking the right guy and blackmailing him. I sat and listened, and inside me, something died. Not anger, not hurt. Something important that had held me up my whole life. Belief that I was worth something on my own. That my projects won because they were good. Turns out, no. I was just pushed through via bed. I'll kill him, I said quietly. Kill him and you go to prison. Liam becomes an orphan with a living father. You want that? I was silent. Marcus put a hand on my shoulder. Don't kill him, Ethan. Make him kill himself. Make him lose everything he has. Company, money, family, reputation. Let him wake up in some hole and realize life is over. That's revenge. Just shooting him is too easy for people like him. I looked at him. In my head, a plan started forming. The first thing I did was go to Nora. Not as an avenger, not as a wronged husband. As a friend. Because if you think about it, we were in the same boat. We'd both been betrayed. I knew she'd be at a charity gala at the Modern Art Museum on Friday. I got there early, waited in the parking lot until she came out of her car. Nora Black is a woman pushing 40, well-groomed, beautiful with that cold beauty that gets sharper with age. Dark hair, perfect makeup, dressed by an expensive designer. She always knew her worth. Ethan, She was surprised to see me. You're alone? Where's Evelyn? I thought you'd come together. Evelyn's busy today. A project. Nora, we need to talk. It's important. About Julian. At her husband's name, her face changed. Got harder, colder. I understood. She knows. Or suspects. Those high society women can smell lies from a mile away. They just pretend not to notice because it's more convenient. If you're here to ask for another loan for him, Ethan, we have a finance department. I don't handle money. It's not about money. He's destroying my family. And yours too, I think. Get in the car. She hesitated for a second. Looked at the museum lights, where smiles and champagne awaited her. Then at me, and nodded. She got in my car. I turned on my tablet. I don't want to hurt you, Nora. But you need to know who you're sleeping next to. I showed her the photos. The same ones Marcus showed me. She looked for a long time, scrolled, zoomed in on faces. Not a muscle moved on her face. Bitch, she said quietly. And I understood that wasn't about Evelyn. It was about him. I knew he was a dog. All those business trips, late nights, meetings. But with your wife. She raised her eyes to me. There was ice in them. Why are you showing me this? You want me to make a scene so you can sue Evelyn for money? I want him to lose everything. Blackstone Builders. Reputation. Status. I want him left on the street with just his dick in his pocket. Nora smiled bitterly. You've done your homework. I'm an architect. I'm used to knowing what ground I'm building on. I know, Nora, that your family owns the controlling shares your father left you. Julian is just a manager. He can't do anything without your approval. He can. He's been stealing from the company for 5 years. I know that, but I don't have proof. And without proof, the board won't remove him. And if I can give you proof? Then he's out with a wolf's ticket. I can give you proof. Marcus dug up his scams with that Bridgeport hospital, money laundering, shady contracts. Will that be enough? Nora looked at me for a long time. What do you want in return? For you to help me destroy him. And Evelyn along with him. What do I need to do? Nothing special. Just be on my team. When I call, you come and say the right words. And sign the right papers. She nodded. I hate him, Ethan. For the last 5 years, I've hated him. But I was afraid of the scandal. Afraid for the kids. I thought I'd wait, they'd grow up, then figure it out. But now I don't care anymore. My kids are old enough, they'll understand. Let's do it, Ethan. Let's burn them to the ground. We shook hands. That moment, our alliance was born. The next 2 weeks were hell. I played the grieving but suspecting nothing husband. Evelyn and I had sex, and it made me sick to touch her. We had breakfast together, and I watched her smile and thought, you traitor. You slept with him and came home to me the same night. We discussed summer plans, Liam's school, renovations in the guest room. And at night I didn't sleep, just stared at the ceiling and planned their destruction. Julian, feeling completely safe, got bolder. He invited us to a family dinner at his mansion in Greenwich. Evelyn was happy, wore a new dress that I knew for a fact he'd bought her. She twirled in front of the mirror, asked, well, is it too much? Just right, I said. The too much part was that she was wearing it at all. But I said nothing. The Blacks' house is something else. A 5,000 square foot mansion with columns, a pool, a tennis court. Julian loved showing off his money. Even though the money was really Nora's from her oilman father. He just managed it skillfully while Nora looked the other way. Dinner included us, Nora, Julian, and their teenage kids, who spent the whole evening on their phones. The table groaned with food, wine flowed like water. Julian lounged at the head of the table, sipping whiskey, lecturing me. Ethan, you're a genius, of course. Your projects are beautiful, but that budget for the residential complex scares me. We'll have to cut costs. Maybe replace the Italian marble with a Chinese equivalent? Who's going to see what the floor's made of in 5 years? I smiled the warmest smile I could manage. Whatever you say, Julian. You're the boss. Quality's flexible, right? Like loyalty. Silence fell at the table. Nora's fork clinked against her plate. Evelyn paled but quickly recovered. Ethan's joking, honey, she said, putting her hand on Julian's arm. He's under a lot of pressure with this project. Too intimate a gesture. I looked at Nora. She nodded almost imperceptibly. I see it, I'm not stupid. Julian relaxed, laughed. You're a joker, Woods. Okay, let's drink to construction. After dinner, the men went out on the terrace with cigars. Stood there, looking at the perfect illuminated lawn. Julian clapped me on the shoulder. Man, you look like shit. Bags under your eyes, pale. Working too hard. Evelyn's worried. Oh, I'm sure she's worried. She's very caring. I blew smoke into the night. Listen, Julian, I have a business proposition. What? I want to buy out your share in our dock renovation project. He laughed. Are you crazy? That's a gold mine. In 5 years, that thing will print money. I know, but I found an investor from Singapore. He's offering good money right now. I need cash for another project, urgently. And I figured you could use some extra too. I just need your signature that you don't object to transferring the rights. Julian squinted. How much is he offering? I named a price. 1.5 times the actual value of his share. He whistled. Generous Asian. Fine, send the papers. I'll sign without looking. He stubbed out his cigar on the railing. I trust you like a brother, Ethan. Like a brother. I almost laughed in his face. A brother who fucks your wife. Thanks, Julian. You're a real friend. We went back inside. Evelyn and Nora were sitting in the living room, pretending to chat amiably. Nora looked at me. I nodded. Everything's going according to plan. Nora worked like a virtuoso. She had a friend who worked as a secretary at Blackstone Builders. For a certain sum, I paid. This friend copied internal documents for us that Nora couldn't access directly because Julian had walled her off from operations. The documents were gold. First, Julian had used uncertified materials building that hospital in Bridgeport. He saved about $3 million on load-bearing structures, replacing steel with a cheaper but less strong alloy. If this came out, the hospital could be closed and he'd go to prison for endangering lives. Second, he was laundering money through offshore accounts. Simple scheme. He'd contract with shell companies owned by his cousin, pay them for services, and the money came back to him clean. In 2 years, about $10 million went through this. Third, he had 3 other mistresses besides Evelyn. One worked at Stamford City Hall and got him contracts in exchange for gifts. Another was the wife of his business partner. The third was just a call girl he saw regularly. I gathered all this into a dossier. Photos, printouts, bank statements. Copies were with Marcus, with Nora, and with me, in different places. But the main blow I was preparing for Evelyn. I decided to confront her not all at once, but gradually, so she'd get nervous and start making mistakes. Started small. One evening while we watched TV, I asked, "Remember that weekend you went to Boston for a client? When Liam was sick?" She tensed but answered calmly. "Of course I remember. Why?" "Just curious. That client called later, asking about you. Said you never actually met, that you cancelled at the last minute." It was a lie. Nobody called, but I wanted to see her reaction. She paled, then flushed. "That's nonsense. We met. He just forgot. You know businessmen, they have lousy memories." "I guess," I said. "Funny." She got nervous, went to the bathroom, stayed in there a long time. And I smiled in the dark. Psychological pressure works. A week later, I set up the second blow. Said we were flying to Miami for the weekend, to the hotel where we'd had our honeymoon. She was happy. Probably thought I was trying to rekindle romance, that all suspicions were gone. Instead of Miami, our private plane, I rented it for crazy money, but it was worth it, landed in Atlanta. "Where are we?" she asked, looking out the window. "Surprise, honey. I want to show you something." We got in a car and drove to a modest suburb. I took her to her mother's house. An elderly woman Evelyn hadn't spoken to in 10 years. They'd had an old fight about her father, who'd left the family, and Evelyn blamed her mother. "Why?" she hissed. "You know I don't talk to her." "I know, but family's important. Before it's too late, you should make up." Her mother opened the door, surprised, but let us in. While Evelyn made awkward conversation in the living room, drinking tea and pretending everything was fine, I went into the little bedroom where an old dresser stood. Inside, in a shoebox, were letters. The letters 16-year-old Evelyn had written her mother from summer camp, full of teenage secrets. I knew they were there because Evelyn had told me about them once, drunk, early in our relationship. I took a couple of letters. Not for any purpose, just so she'd see I'd been there. That I was digging through her past. Let her be nervous. On the plane back, she was silent, boring holes in me with her eyes. "What was that, Ethan? Why did you take me to her?" "I told you. I want you to reconcile. You have nobody left but me and Liam. And a mother is a mother. You don't have anything to tell me?" I looked her straight in the eyes. "No, Evelyn, do you have something to tell me?" She looked away. The first big crack in her armor. The reckoning came a month later. I invited Julian and Nora to dinner at our glass house. Said I wanted to celebrate closing the deal with the Singapore investor, the one I'd lied about. Evelyn, suspecting nothing, set the table. She looked beautiful in that dark blue dress that Julian liked so much. I watched her set things out, fix her hair, and thought, tonight you lose everything. Julian and Nora arrived. Julian was in a great mood, joking, clapping me on the shoulder. Nora was quiet and serious. We sat down. That huge glass table I designed myself, overlooking the ocean. The sunset was blood red, like in horror movies. Dinner was tense. We talked about weather, politics, new movies. Nobody touched business or personal lives. Evelyn drank wine glass after glass. Julian ate with appetite, suspecting nothing. When dessert came, chocolate fondant that Evelyn had ordered from her favorite pastry chef, I stood up. Friends, I want to propose a toast. To truth, which, as we know, always comes out eventually. I picked up the remote and turned on the TV built into the wall. Video appeared on screen. It was footage from that hotel in Stamford. Julian and Evelyn entering a room. An hour later, leaving, adjusting their clothes. Clear, close-up, with dates and times. Evelyn choked on her wine, coughed. Julian went white as a sheet. Ethan, what the fuck? He roared, jumping up from the table. You were spying on us? You put a tail on us? Me? I acted surprised. It was the feds tailing you, Julian. For your hospital scams. This video is just a small part of what came out in the wiretap. I just hired a hacker who copied the case files. Oh, and your mistresses, including our mutual friend, have already testified to the prosecutor. I switched the video. Now documents were on screen. Those same ones, about money transfers, fake certificates, shady subcontractors. Nora, dear, I turned to her. As chairman of the board of Blackstone Builders and majority shareholder, what do you say about your husband's financial schemes? Nora slowly rose from the table, took an envelope from her purse and threw it on the table in front of Julian. Here's your termination, Julian. The board voted this morning. You're no longer CEO of the company. An audit is starting. If you go to prison, I'll send you a care package. Julian stared at the two of us, unbelieving. Then looked at Evelyn, then back at me. You conspired? Bitches. All of you. Quiet, I cut him off. That's not all. Evelyn, dear. Evelyn sat frozen in her chair, tears streaming down her cheeks. For the first time, I saw her cry for real, not for show. I filed for divorce, I said calmly. 3 days ago. Lawyers are already working. Given that you spend our joint funds on supporting your lover, and these transfers from Julian which constitute bribery and money laundering, the court will rule in my favor. You get nothing except child support for Liam, which you'll pay to me. Because now you have no job, no money, no husband. What do you mean, no job? She whispered. Exactly that. I already talked to all your clients. Explained the situation. They're canceling contracts. Your reputation as a designer after this scandal will be such that nobody will hire you for free. Ethan, please, she babbled. It was a mistake, a stupid mistake. I love you. You love my money, my house, and my reputation. Julian gave you what I didn't. Risk and his money. But his money's gone, Evelyn. He's bankrupt, and he's going to prison. Julian jumped up, knocking over his chair. You'll regret this, Woods. I have connections in this state. Friends in the prosecutor's office. Useless, said a voice from the door. We all turned. Marcus stood there with 2 men in suits. Mr. Black, said one, showing his badge. You're under arrest for fraud on an especially large scale. Come with us. Julian tried to say something, but they took him by the arms and led him out. Nora didn't even look at him. She looked at me. Thanks for dinner, Ethan. It was educational. She put on her coat and left, not saying goodbye to Evelyn. We were alone. Evelyn sobbed at the table, mascara running down her face. What do I do now? She whispered. Stay here for now. I'll leave you the house. For a month. To pack your things and figure out where to go. Liam stays with me. You'll see him weekends with a psychologist present. I don't want my son to see what you've become. She flinched like I'd slapped her. You're cruel. I'm honest. There's a difference. Good night, Evelyn. I went to my room on the first floor, closed the door, and for the first time in months, slept peacefully. The divorce went surprisingly quietly. Evelyn, deprived of Julian's financial support and lawyers who could have challenged my team, agreed to my terms. She got a small cash settlement, $200,000 I paid out of pocket so she could buy an apartment and survive the first months. And a 2-bedroom apartment in New Haven, in a not great neighborhood. She tried to negotiate, but I was firm. You want a trial? I asked her lawyer at one meeting. Let's have a trial. I'll bring witnesses to testify how she spent our money on hotels with her lover. I'll show recordings of her calls. I'll prove she didn't just cheat but participated in financial crimes. After that, she won't just lose money, she might get time as an accomplice. Evelyn's lawyer conferred with her and accepted my terms. Liam stayed with me. I hired the best nanny I could find and freed up my afternoons to spend time with him. Took him to soccer, help with homework, read bedtime stories. I became the father I should always have been, but who was blocked by work and the illusion of a perfect marriage. Evelyn called every day, first with pleas. Ethan, forgive me, I'm an idiot, I didn't know what I was doing. Then with threats. I'll tell everyone what a monster you are, how you destroyed me. Then please again. I'm alone, I'm so alone. Julian left me as soon as he made bail. I listened silently and hung up. Julian Black became a shadow of his former self. Nora divorced him swiftly, cutting off all access to accounts. His company collapsed under the weight of scandals. Newspapers wrote about the fall of the concrete king. His mistresses gave interviews to tabloids. Within 6 months, he was living in some hole in New Jersey, selling his Patek Philippe watch to pay debts. I watched from the sidelines. I should have felt satisfaction. But inside was emptiness. I destroyed them, but I didn't feel better. A year passed. I stood on that same terrace, looking at that same ocean. It still crashed against the rocks, the wind still blew. Liam was in school. I was working on a new project, a shelter for homeless veterans. Free of charge. I just wanted to build something with soul, not another glass monster for billionaires. The doorbell rang. Nora stood on the step. She'd lost weight, looked older, but her eyes held the same fire. Ethan, can I come in? Sure, come in. She walked into the living room, looked around. Everything's the same, just no photos of Evelyn. Threw them out. Smart. She sat on the couch. I came to warn you. Julian's out of hiding. He didn't accept it. Started a little construction firm in New Jersey. And it seems he's back together with your ex-wife. My heart skipped. Not from jealousy, from surprise. They're back together? They never really split, Ethan. Evelyn visited him in jail during the investigation. Wrote letters. They planned to start over once the dust settled. And now the dust has settled. They have a little interior design agency in Patterson. Called Black & Woods Interiors. Hear that? Woods, your last name. She's using your name so clients think it's a legit firm connected to you. I smiled bitterly. How ironic. They're back together and building a business. And from what I hear, they want their reputation back. And maybe revenge on you. Be careful, Ethan. Julian's dangerous even without money. He has spite. And she does too. Nora left. I sat back at my desk. The thought of them together again, plotting, stuck in my head. I hired Marcus again. He set up surveillance on their new life. The reports were boring. They lived in that same rundown townhouse in Patterson. The Black & Woods studio occupied a tiny ground floor space. They'd had 3 jobs in 6 months. Painting an office for some small company, rearranging furniture in an old lady's apartment, and a design concept for a diner that never got paid. They were scraping by. Evelyn called Liam once a week, as court ordered. But he didn't want to talk to her. Just sat silently through her lamentations and said, "Mom, I had to do homework." I didn't turn my son against her. Kids feel things themselves. He'd seen how she tormented me during those divorce months. Heard her hysterics on the phone. He knew what she'd done. But one day Liam came home from school, not himself. "Dad," he said at dinner. "Mom said you threw her out on the street and took all her money." I sighed. Here we go. Liam, you know that's not true. You were there when it happened. You heard what she did. You saw the photos. I know, Dad. I told her that, but she was crying, said I should visit her. That she has a new home now and wants me to meet her, friend. Julian. I went cold. Julian. They want to get to me through my son. Do you want to go? No. Liam shook his head. I don't want to see him. But she keeps asking. Maybe we could go together? You could wait in the car? I knew this could be a trap. But I couldn't forbid my son from seeing his mother. That would make me the villain in his eyes. Okay, I said. We'll go Saturday. Saturday morning, we got in the car and drove to New Jersey. The drive took about 2 hours. The further we got from Connecticut, the poorer the scenery became. Factories, warehouses, peeling houses. Paterson greeted us with gray sky and wet snow. We found their townhouse, a 2-story building with peeling paint, grimy windows, and an old pickup truck out front. Julian Black, who once flew private jets, now drove a beater. I parked around the corner. "Go, son. I'll wait here. If anything feels wrong or uncomfortable, just call me and I'll come right away." "Deal?" Liam nodded, got out, and walked toward the house. Tall, serious beyond his years. I watched him disappear through the door, heart pounding in my throat. I waited. 10 minutes, 20, half an hour. Then 40 minutes. No call. I started to get nervous. Got out my phone, opened the parental control app. I had the right to see my son's phone location and, in emergencies, activate the camera. I'd never used it, but now I pressed the button. Video appeared on my screen. A dirty living room, cheap furniture. Liam on the couch, tense. Across from him, Julian sprawled in an armchair with a beer can. Evelyn standing at the kitchen counter, wringing her hands. I turned on audio. "He has to sign the papers," Julian was saying. "You'll tell him that when he comes." "He won't come," Liam answered. "He's waiting in the car." "Even better." Julian grinned. "Call him, tell him to come in." "No, call him, you little shit." Julian barked. "Or we'll call him ourselves and say you're our guest and won't leave until he comes." My blood ran cold. I started the car and drove toward the house. Called Liam. "Son, I'm coming. Don't be scared." I walked in without knocking. The door was unlocked. Inside smelled like cheap air freshener and must. Evelyn stood in the kitchen. Seeing me, she paled even more. Julian sat in the armchair, feet on the coffee table, drinking beer. "Oh, you came," he said. "Sit down, architect. Let's talk business. Evelyn, pour our guest some whiskey. Though we only have bourbon." "I didn't come to drink with you," I said. "What do you want?" "Justice." He leaned forward. "You destroyed me. I lost everything. Wife, company, money, reputation. Evelyn and I are barely making ends meet. You destroyed yourself when you went after another man's family and stole from your own company." "Whatever." He waved his hand. "We've been thinking and decided you owe us." "I don't owe you anything." "Oh, you do. See, we have your son." He nodded at Liam. "He's in our house. And if you don't sign this paper, we'll call the police and say you kidnapped him. That you blackmailed Evelyn and threatened her, so she couldn't take her son before. We have recordings of your calls where you insulted her. We have witnesses that you're an aggressive psycho." Liam jumped off the couch. "You're lying. Dad never did anything like that." "Sit down, puppy." Julian roared. "Stay out of adult conversations." I looked at Evelyn. She stood there, eyes down. Silent. Complicit. "What paper?" I asked. "A waiver. You transfer $500,000 to us and sign that you voluntarily give custody of your son to Evelyn. And we part peacefully." "You're insane," I said. "Never." "Then we call the police." Julian pulled out his phone. "Right now." "Call them," I said. And pulled out mine. "But first, listen to this." I pressed a button on my phone. Julian's voice came out. "We have your son. If you don't sign, we'll call the police." Julian froze. "What's that?" "A recording. I turned on the voice recorder when I walked in." "That proves nothing. We'll say you faked it." "And this?" I showed him my phone screen. It showed video from Liam's phone. Liam on the couch, Julian yelling at him. "My son's phone has a parental control app." I turned on the camera while I was sitting in the car. "Everything that happened here in the last 40 minutes is recorded. Your threats, his fear, your plan. This is called attempted kidnapping and extortion. You're looking at a second prison sentence, Julian." Julian went white. Evelyn gasped. "Ethan, please," she started. "Shut up," I cut her off. "Liam, let's go. You're not leaving." Julian yelled and lunged at me. He was drunk and old. I just stepped aside, and he crashed into the wall, knocking down a shelf. "Liam, run to the car." We ran outside, jumped in the car, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw Evelyn on the porch. She was watching us. Her eyes held not anger. Horror. She knew she'd lost, finally. We didn't go to the police. The video and recording stayed with me as insurance that they'd never come near Liam again. But I decided to finish them for good. A week later, I visited Nora. She lived alone now in her Greenwich mansion, too big for one person, but she didn't want to sell it. They tried to kidnap Liam, I told her without preamble. She paled. God, Ethan, he's completely lost it. Yeah, and I want you to help me finish him. Once and for all. What do you need? You still have connections in construction. Make sure word gets around about his new firm and his past. Make sure he loses every job. Leave them with nothing. No money. No hope. Nora looked at me for a long time. You want to hurt them. I get it, but it won't bring you peace. I don't need peace. I need them out of our lives. I need Liam to be able to go to school without fear of being kidnapped again. Nora nodded. Okay, I'll do it. She did. Within a month, Black & Woods Interiors went bankrupt. All contracts were cancelled. Credit was cut off. In Patterson, they became outcasts. Local wealthy homeowners learned about Julian's prison time and Evelyn's scandalous divorce. Nobody wanted to deal with them. I got a letter from Evelyn. On cheap paper, handwritten, with spelling mistakes. Ethan, I know it's you. You took everything from me. First my home, then my son, now my last hope. Julian left. Again. He couldn't take it and ran to California, leaving me alone with debts. I'm completely alone. I hate you. But looking back, I know I deserved this. I destroyed our family. I betrayed you. Forgive me if you can. I'm leaving. You won't see me again. I burned the letter in the fireplace, watching the paper curl and blacken. I never saw Evelyn again. Word is she moved to Oregon and lives alone there, working in some store. Julian was arrested 6 months later in California for petty fraud. He got 2 years. After his release, his trail goes cold. Maybe he died, maybe he went to Mexico. I don't care. Today Liam is 13. We're sitting on the terrace, drinking lemonade, watching the ocean. He's almost as tall as me now, voice cracking, first fuzz on his chin. Dad, he says, are you happy? I think about it. Strange question from a teenager. Happy? Probably, yeah. Why? Just, you don't smile much. I mean, really smile. I look at him. This kid who went through hell and came out normal. Not bitter, not closed off, not hating women or the whole world. You know, son, happiness is when you wake up in the morning and know today will be a good day. Even if there are problems. That's how I feel. He nods, finishes his lemonade, and goes inside to play computer games. I'm alone. Coffee mug in hand, blueprints on the table for a new project, a school for gifted kids. I build now not for money. I build for the soul. It brings more satisfaction than all the $1 million contracts. Sometimes I have dinner with Nora. We remember that whole story and laugh. Strange, but we became friends. United by shared pain and shared revenge. Now we both have new lives. I've learned to forgive myself. For being blind. For being so cruel in my revenge. For spending 2 years on destruction instead of building. But that revenge was a bridge I crossed from my old life to the new one. The glass house doesn't feel fragile anymore. It just is, and I'm in it. I look at the ocean and think. Sometimes, to build something new, you have to tear down the old. Even if you have to use a sledgehammer. Even if your hands bleed. The main thing is to have the strength to build again afterward. I had it. Story 2. My name is Vivian Cole. Now, looking back, I realize my life with Michael was like one of those overhyped Hollywood mansions with panoramic windows, beautiful, transparent, but damn fragile. Too much glass. Too easy to break. We met when I was 23. I was working as a junior designer at a small landscaping firm in Seattle, and he was a rising star in the IT world. Tall, with that permanent slight stubble and eyes the color of a stormy sea. Michael knew how to listen. Not just nod while you talked, but really hear you. That was disarming. He courted me beautifully. Not that it was expensive, although he already had money back then, but it was genuinely beautiful. He might send a courier in the middle of the workweek with my favorite pumpkin spice latte and a book of poetry I'd casually mentioned a week earlier. A year later, he proposed. We got married in a small chapel by the ocean, under a pouring rain that we both considered a good omen. Foolish, naive. For the next 7 years, I built our shared world. First, we bought an apartment, then, when his startup skyrocketed, we built that house, with a pool and panoramic windows. I left landscaping to handle the house's interiors, and then it somehow naturally grew into my own small decorating business. I had enough clients, the work was enjoyable, but I always considered family the priority. We had twins, Ben and Olivia. My life was perfect. Michael was a caring father, at least on evenings and weekends. We traveled, threw parties for friends, went to school meetings together. I thought I knew everything about him. I knew he hated eggplants, that he had a heart-shaped mole on his left shoulder blade, that he snored when he was really tired, and that he always smelled of fresh cedar and coffee. The idyll lasted exactly until the moment I decided to download photos from our shared family tablet onto my laptop. Michael used it for work and sometimes for playing with the kids. The tablet was synced with his phone. I just wanted to transfer the Fall 2023 folder with pictures of the leaves we'd collected in the park. I opened the Photos app and saw a folder named, For Vivian, Surprise. My heart skipped a beat. Was he preparing an anniversary gift for me? I opened the folder. Inside, there were no photos. There was a screenshot of a text conversation. With Tracy. Tracy Wallace, my best friend. The one who came over when the kids had chickenpox. The one who held my hand when I buried my father. The one I chose my wedding dress with. The screenshot was dated the day before. Tracy. I miss you. When are you coming again? Will she be cooing over her wallpaper samples again? Michael. Tomorrow. I'll say it's a meeting with investors. Wait for me at our place. Tracy. I hope you bought that champagne. Viv mustn't find out. She's so fragile. She wouldn't survive it. Michael. She won't find out. To her, I'm the perfect husband. We'll just keep doing it this way. I stared at those lines, and the letters swam before my eyes. The world ceased to exist. I didn't hear the kids calling me from the kitchen, or the phone ringing. I just sat there and read the entire conversation he had carelessly saved. It had been going on for over a year. They met at the hotel Michael and I loved, at restaurants where he supposedly took clients. They laughed at me, at how I bossed everyone around, at family dinners, at my habit of rearranging the cushions on the sofa. The anger didn't come immediately. First came a cottony emptiness and a wild, animal pain. Then, when I reread the phrase, she's so fragile, something inside me switched. Clicked, like a safety catch. Fragile? No, Tracy, my dear. You have no idea what the person you decided to betray is made of. Carefully, with trembling fingers, I photographed the tablet screen with my phone. I emailed the photo to myself. Again and again, and then I sat down and waited for Michael to come home from work. I had a plan. Still raw, but a cold knot of determination was already growing inside me. When Michael walked into the house, I was standing in the kitchen cutting salad. The knife moved steadily, rhythmically. I looked at him and, for the first time in many years, I didn't see a loving husband, but a stranger with a fake smile. Hey, honey, how was your day? He pecked me on the cheek, not even noticing I hadn't returned the kiss. Fine, I replied flatly. Are you eating dinner? Yeah, I'll grab something. I'm hitting the shower. I watched his back and thought, this is it. The moment where everything is decided. You either shatter into pieces, or you put yourself back together, and those pieces become blades. The next 2 weeks were the hardest of my life. I had to pretend, smile at the kids, make breakfast, discuss weekend plans with Michael. Meanwhile, inside me, a cold, methodical work was underway. I hired a private investigator. Jeffrey Stone was a man in his 50s with the look of a tired accountant, but he was a virtuoso at his job. I gave him all the data. Names, Michael's schedule, his car, Trace's credit card number. I knew it because we'd once booked a hotel together for her bachelorette party. Jeffrey took a retainer and promised to compile a dossier in a month. He did it in 3 weeks. We met in a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town. He placed a thick folder and a flash drive in front of me. Mrs. Cole, he began without preamble, your husband doesn't just have one woman. At least over the last 6 months, there have been 2. Miss Wallace is the main one, so to speak, the favorite. But he also frequents a club on 4th Street quite often. He rents a private room there through a shell company. The companions vary. I've gathered photos, videos, printouts of bills from hotels and restaurants. And also something else. I opened the folder. Photos of Michael and Tracy kissing in the car. Photos of him entering a hotel room. And photos of other girls. Young, pretty, vacant. Also, Jeffrey continued, I dug into his business. Your husband is transferring money to offshore accounts. Not all of it, of course, but a fairly substantial amount. It looks like he's preparing for the possibility that his startup might be sold, and he wants to hide part of the money. If you decide to file for divorce, this could work in your favor. Thank you, Mr. Stone, I said, tucking the folder into my bag. This is more than enough. I felt strange. It should have hurt, but the pain had vanished somewhere. All that remained was a cold fury and a strange, almost professional curiosity. Well, look at that, how cleverly he could lie. I decided to save Tracy for dessert. First, I needed to deal with Michael. I didn't throw a tantrum. I didn't hurl the folder of evidence at him. I wanted him to lose big. To have everything he considered rightfully his taken away. The house, the money, the reputation. And most importantly, the kids. With the kids, he was good exactly as much as it was convenient. He might play with them for an hour or two, but he never stayed with them when they were sick, never went to school events if it interfered with a meeting. I gathered all the proof. Records from babysitters, school letters signed only by me, text messages with his refusals. In our state, during a divorce, the court usually grants custody to the mother, especially if the father can't prove otherwise. But I wanted guarantees. I went to a lawyer. Robert Clark was one of the best divorce attorneys in the city. Tough, cynical, and very expensive. "Mrs. Cole," he said, flipping through my dossier, "you're holding a winning lottery ticket. Infidelity, money laundering, neglect of parental duties. If we file now, he'll be left with nothing. Not even his underwear." "I don't just want to leave him without underwear, Mr. Clark," I replied. "I want him to willingly give me everything." With a smile on his face. "That's interesting. Go on. I need you to prepare a new prenuptial agreement. Supposedly for tax optimization or for a new phase of his business. In it, there will be a clause stating that in the event of a divorce initiated by either party, all assets, including the house, accounts, and business, go to me and the children. And he receives monthly support sufficient for renting an apartment, and nothing more." "He'll never sign that," Clark smirked. "He will sign it," I said, "if he thinks it's a temporary measure to protect his money from me. If I tell him his partner's lawyers are advising it to safeguard capital from potential lawsuits. If I put on a performance so convincing that he asks me to sign it himself. I need time, and I need you to keep quiet." Robert looked at me with renewed interest. "You know, Mrs. Cole, in 20 years of practice, I've seen many cheated on wives. But such cold calculation, you scare me. I like it. I'll draw up the papers." The next month was my finest hour in the art of pretense. I became the perfect wife, squared. I was tender, caring, interested in his affairs, offered help. I casually slipped him an article about how large companies protect assets from divorce proceedings by revising internal agreements. Over dinner, I said, "Michael, honey, I'm so afraid your business might be attacked by competitors." "My lawyer," I lied, saying I'd consulted a lawyer about my own business. "Says these days many couples are renegotiating prenuptial agreements to prevent assets from being divided in case of company bankruptcy. So everything stays in the family. Maybe we should hedge our bets?" He looked at me suspiciously. "What's this all of a sudden?" "Well, look at the Petersons. They lost their house when his company went bankrupt because everything was joint. And we have kids. I just want us to have a safety net. We can draw up a document stating that in case something happens, the house and accounts stay with me and the kids. For their benefit. It's just a formality. It's not like you're planning to divorce me, right?" I laughed and looked him straight in the eye. He looked away. "Nonsense," he muttered, but I saw the seed was planted. 2 weeks later, he brought it up himself. My accidental call to his partner had done the trick. I'd called him under the pretext of a charity event and casually mentioned that Michael and I were thinking about restructuring family assets. The partner, naturally, advised Michael to cover his rear. In the end, he signed the contract. In my office with my lawyer present, without even reading the fine print. He was so confident in himself, so sure that I was that stupid hen who would never dare leave him. He patted me on the shoulder and said, "See, baby, now we're completely safe." "Yes, honey," I smiled. "Now we're completely safe." Once the prenup was signed and notarized, I turned my attention to Tracy. She still came to our house, flirted with Michael behind my back, and pretended we were best friends. It wasn't enough for her just to sleep with my husband. She had to come into my home, sit in my kitchen, play with my children. That was more than just betrayal, it was a challenge. I invited her to lunch. To that very restaurant where she and Michael usually met. I booked a table a week in advance. She arrived, as always, radiant, in a new dress. Chirped about her new boyfriend. She was divorced and always looking for happiness, about work, about fashion. I listened, drank my tea, and smiled. "Tracy," I interrupted her mid-sentence. You remember our trip to Portland 3 years ago? We argued because you wanted to go to a club, and I wanted to sleep. Oh, yes, she laughed. Those were fun times. Back then, I had a problem with my phone, and I used yours to call Michael. Remember? She tensed but nodded. So, I accidentally left the location service on your phone. And for some reason, it synced with my account. A stupid glitch. All these years, I've seen where you've been. I saw your regular Tuesday visits to the Grand Plaza Hotel. I saw your late returns from that club on 4th Street. I wonder who you were having such fun with while I was sitting with your cat when you went to your mom's. Tracy paled. The cup in her hand trembled. Vivian, I don't know what you're talking about. Stop it, I said wearily. I know everything. About Michael and about his other whores. I know how many times you fucked in my guest bedroom while I was taking the kids to the dentist. Did you think I wouldn't notice the pillows were always messed up, not the way I leave them? She was silent. Her eyes darted around, looking for an escape. I'm not going to hit you, don't worry, I smirked. I need you for something else. You're going to help me destroy him. What, are you crazy? I love him. Love him? I genuinely laughed. Tracy, he's using you like a hole in the fence. He has 2 others, younger. Or did you think you were his only one? I pulled photos out of my bag. Michael with a blonde near the club. Michael with a brunette in a car. Tracy stared at them, her face falling. He said I was special to him, she whispered. That you two hadn't slept together in ages, that he only stayed with you for the kids' sake. He lies, I cut her off. We sleep together once a week, like clockwork. On Saturdays, after the kids are asleep. He just fucks you on Tuesdays, for variety. Listen to me, you help me, and I'll forget you exist. I'll even let you keep your reputation. No one will know you slept with your friend's husband. But if you refuse, I'll post all these photos online. I'll send them to your mother, your boss, your gym friends. You'll become a local celebrity. Your choice. Tracy started to cry. Tears streamed down her cheeks, mascara ran. She looked pathetic, but I felt no pity for her. Not a drop. What do I need to do? She choked out. I need access to his work laptop. The one he never lets out of his sight. You'll be at our house for dinner tomorrow. Distract him. Have sex with him in my guest bedroom while I copy the data. You have 1 hour. After that, you're free. The next day, everything went according to plan. Tracy came to dinner, playing the friend. Michael played the gracious host. I was sweet and attentive. After dinner, I said I needed to put the kids to bed and went upstairs. Michael and Tracy stayed downstairs, drinking wine. I came back down 40 minutes later. They weren't in the living room. I went to the guest bedroom. The door was ajar. What I saw no longer evoked anything in me but disgust. I quietly closed the door, went into Michael's study, where his laptop lay on the desk. He'd left it in a hurry, distracted by Tracy. The password? I knew his phone code, their daughter's birthday. It worked. I ran the copying program Jeffrey had given me. While files transferred to my external drive, I quickly skimmed through his messages. What I found was better than just offshore accounts. He was messaging someone named Alex, discussing selling part of the technology to competitors. It was industrial espionage, not just skimming money. That carried real prison time. An hour later, I was back in my bedroom with the drive. Tracy had left without saying goodbye. Michael came upstairs, pleased as a cat that got the cream. Tracy left? Strange, didn't even say goodbye, he yawned. Must be tired. Probably, I replied, without turning around. The next morning, I went to Robert Clark. We prepared 2 lawsuits. One for divorce on grounds of infidelity, demanding enforcement of the prenuptial agreement, and a criminal complaint for industrial espionage, attaching copies of the messages. Michael found out about the divorce when the papers were served to him at his office. They say he was furious. He rushed home, stormed into the living room where I was calmly drinking coffee. What the hell are you doing, you crazy bitch? He yelled. What divorce? What contract? You set me up. Me? I raised an eyebrow. Honey, you signed the contract yourself. You fucked my best friend in my house yourself. You leaked data to competitors yourself. I just collected the facts. You can't prove anything, he yelled, shaking with rage. Already proven, I nodded towards my laptop, where an email from the prosecutor's office was open. You'll be getting a call soon. And one more thing, Michael. The kids stay with me. You'll see them only if the court allows it, and only if the court even lets you near them after hearing how you spent your time while they were sick. He lunged at me, grabbing my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I was truly afraid of him. There was genuine fury in his eyes. "You'll regret this, bitch. Take your hands off me," I said firmly, though my heart was pounding in my throat. "Or I'll call the police right now. Let's add assault to the file." He let go and stormed out of the house, slamming the glass door so hard it nearly shattered. The divorce was quick and dirty. The prenuptial agreement was upheld. Michael tried to contest it, but his lawyers said there was no chance. He'd signed it of sound mind and with witnesses. The business, the house, the accounts, everything went to me. He was left with his car and the apartment he was renting. The criminal case for industrial espionage fell apart. The competitor paid off his fines, and Michael got off with a heavy fine and a ruined reputation. He was kicked out of his own company by partners who didn't want to deal with someone caught stealing. It seemed like victory. I got everything. I got my revenge. But inside, there was emptiness. I'd sit in my huge glass house, watching the kids play in the garden, and feel nothing but exhaustion. A year passed. I threw myself into my business, expanded it, opened a showroom. I never saw Tracy again. She left town, supposedly married some military guy and lives on a base in another state. Michael would occasionally send messages, apologizing, swearing he loved me, saying the kids needed to see their father. I allowed supervised visits, but without much enthusiasm. The kids missed him, and that was the only thing that still caused me pain. And then David came into my life. David Blackwood. He was an architect. We met on one of my projects. I was doing the landscaping for a house he'd designed. Tall, silver-haired, with intelligent eyes and the calm confidence of a man who has nothing to prove to anyone. He was about 10 years older than me, divorced, with an adult son. He courted me slowly, respectfully. Didn't pry into my soul, didn't try to replace the kid's father, just was there. Helped Ben with his homework when I was late at work, brought Olivia paints for her art. With him, it was easy. Peaceful. I started to thaw. After 6 months, he proposed. I thought about it for a long time before saying yes. The scars were too fresh. But David was so reliable, so genuine. I decided to take the risk. We got married quietly, with just family. I moved into his house, modern, but cozier than my glass monster. I rented my house out to a young couple from California. Too many bad memories. The year with David flew by like one long, happy day. We traveled, made plans, the kids adored him. I thought I'd finally earned my happiness. That karma was restored. I was wrong. David had a son, Caleb. He was 23, in grad school on the East Coast, and visited his father rarely. I'd seen him a couple of times briefly, tall, awkward young man, with a wary look. He wasn't rude to me, but he showed no warmth either. Polite but distant. I chalked it up to normal jealousy of a young stepmother. David said Caleb was just like that, reserved, spent a lot of time with his books. I didn't think much of it. But one time, when David was away on a 2-week business trip, Caleb unexpectedly showed up in town. Said he had a break and decided to spend it here, help his father sort through some house documents he'd been meaning to organize for ages. I offered him the guest room. He accepted. The first few days were fine. We'd cross paths in the kitchen, have coffee, talk about the weather. He was polite, helped me carry bags from the car. But then I started noticing strange things. His look, when he thought I wasn't watching. There was more than just wariness in that look. There was something heavy, assessing. As if he was solving a puzzle. And then I found it. I was cleaning David's study, which Caleb had access to, and found a photograph under a stack of papers. Old, worn. It showed a young woman, very beautiful, with dark hair and wide-set eyes. The woman was holding a little boy. The boy looked like Caleb. At first, I didn't think much of it. David probably had lots of old photos. But something about the woman's face nagged at me. Some elusive familiar feature. I turned the photo over. On the back was written, Alice and Caleb. 2001. Seattle. Alice. The name sounded vaguely familiar. Where had I heard it? I scrolled through my memory, through all the conversations with David, all mentions of his past. And then it hit me. Once, when we were talking about his first wife, he'd mentioned, she was an extraordinary woman. Her name was Alice. She died. I looked at the photo. The woman was smiling. And then I realized what had caught my attention. She had the same eye shape as Michael. The same as my Olivia. My heart plummeted. I grabbed my phone and dialed Jeffrey Stone. Jeffrey, it's Vivian. I need you to urgently dig up information on a woman. Alice, last name unknown, husband David Blackwood, died about 20 years ago in Seattle. And also, her connection to my ex-husband, Michael Cole. Jeffrey, as always, worked fast. He called back 2 days later. Mrs. Cole, he said, his voice sounding strange. I found Alice. Alice Morrison, nay. She worked at the same company as Michael, different department. They knew each other. Moreover, in the 6 months before her death, they were often seen together. She was pregnant when she died. In the official report, a car accident she was driving lost control. But, there's a catch. What? I asked, feeling a chill run down my spine. The car she crashed belonged to Michael. He reported lending it to her the day before because her own was in the shop. Insurance covered the damage, case closed. But the mechanic who inspected the car after the accident is still alive. He told the police at the time that the brake lines had been cut. His testimony wasn't accepted. They thought he was mistaken because the car was so badly damaged. It was written off as an accident. I listened in disbelief. Are you saying Michael could have killed her? I'm saying there's circumstantial evidence and a living witness. But it's an old case, and without a serious reason, it won't be reopened. I hung up. My thoughts were jumbled. Why would Michael kill Alice? And then it dawned on me. Caleb, he was 23 now. In 2001, he was just a little boy. So, he was Alice's son. David said his wife died when Caleb was 2. But if Alice knew Michael, and if Caleb was here now, I walked out of the bedroom and ran into Caleb in the hallway. He was standing there, watching me. There was no more wariness in his eyes. Now they burned with cold hatred. You found the photo, he said. It wasn't a question. I know who you are. Caleb, what are you talking about? I stepped back. You're married to the man who killed my mother. Michael Cole, your ex-husband. I know everything. I've been searching for information for years. He staged the accident. She was pregnant, with his child. I could have had a brother or sister. But he killed them all. How do you know? I whispered. My grandmother on my mother's side, he said. She never believed it was an accident. She gathered information, but she didn't have money for lawyers. When she died, I found her papers. And then I started looking for him. I found out he had a family, a wife, kids. I found your business online. And then I saw you married my father. He took a step towards me. I didn't know it would turn out this way. I just wanted to meet you, gain your trust, learn more about him. I didn't think my father would marry you so quickly. But when it happened, I realized it was a chance. You can help me put him away. Michael? I repeated, but we don't have direct proof. We have the mechanic witness. I found him. He's agreed to testify if the case is reopened. But we need a push. We need someone close to Michael to help. He might slip up. He might have kept some evidence. You know him better than anyone. You could gain his trust again. Are you insane? I exclaimed. I hate him. After what he did. And you want me to get close to him again? For justice, Caleb said harshly. For my mother. And for your children. Do you want their father to be a murderer? Or do you want him to answer for it? I sat down on the floor. My head was spinning. Caleb sat down beside me. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I didn't want you to find out like this. I thought I'd have more time. I thought I'd just be around, observe. But when I saw you were a good person, that you love my father, I felt ashamed of my plan. But I can't stop. He killed my mother. We sat on the hallway floor and talked until nearly dawn. Caleb told me everything. About how his mother, Alice, worked with Michael. They had an affair. When she got pregnant, Michael was already married to his first wife, before me. He'd had a brief marriage he never talked about. Alice wanted to keep the baby, but Michael demanded she get an abortion. She refused. Then, according to Caleb, Michael threatened that if she didn't go away quietly and renounce his paternity, he'd ruin her life. She didn't listen, and a month later, she crashed in his car. He set it up perfectly, Caleb said. The brakes failed on a mountain road. She lost control. The car went into a ravine. They didn't recover her for a day. The mechanic who inspected the wreck told my grandmother the lines were cut, but the police wouldn't listen. Michael had an alibi. He was in another city. And he was clean. Until today. I looked at Caleb and saw in him the same determination that had driven me when I was building my dossier on Michael. Anger, pain, and a thirst for justice. Okay, I said finally. I'll help you, but I have one condition. David must not know. It's too dangerous. And if Michael really is a killer, I want him to rot in prison. We devised a plan. I was to get back in touch with Michael. Not as a wife, but as a concerned mother of their shared children. The cover story was simple. Ben had been acting strangely, withdrawing, and I thought he missed his father. I suggested Michael spend more time with the kids. Michael, who after the divorce had lost everything and was now working as a low-level consultant at a backwater firm, jumped at the chance. He hoped to win back my favor through the children. The meetings were on neutral territory. First in cafes, then he started picking the kids up for visits to his apartment, a shabby one-bedroom, I must say. I was all sweetness, asked about his life, complained about David, claiming he was too controlling. Michael started flirting again, giving compliments. He thought the ice was thawing. Meanwhile, Caleb had his car bugged. We hired a pro for that, Jeffrey again. And we waited. For a month, we listened to empty talk. His whining about work, complaints about life, chatter with the kids. Then he met up with an old friend. We didn't know the guy, but the voice sounded familiar to me. They were drinking in the car, and the conversation turned to old times. "Remember that chick, Alice?" the friend asked. "You got rid of her so neatly back then. I'm still impressed." "Shush," Michael hissed. "Don't rub salt in the wound. That's an old story. Who's gonna care about that old story? Everyone's dead and gone. But you were smart. If she'd had the kid, you'd have had alimony problems and a scandal with your wife. But this way, clean job. How did you cut those brakes anyway?" "Listen, drop it." Michael's voice turned angry. "I didn't cut anything. She crashed herself, the fool." Sure, the friend chuckled. "I won't tell anyone. That's what friends are for." Caleb and I looked at each other, listening to the recording. It wasn't enough. We needed a confession. I decided to get tougher. I told Michael the first wanted to talk seriously. Alone. About us. He agreed immediately and suggested we meet at that very hotel where he used to meet Tracy. The irony. I went, wore a simple dress, put on a sad expression. Ordered champagne. Caleb waited in the next room with the recording equipment. "Michael," I began, "I've been thinking a lot. My marriage to David is falling apart. I realized all this time I've been comparing him to you. You're both so different." He spread into a self-satisfied smile. "I always knew, baby, you'd come back. We're soulmates. But there's one thing holding me back." I took a sip of champagne. "Your dark side. I can't be with someone capable of real meanness. I forgave you for cheating, I forgave the lies. But I need to know. Have you ever done something truly terrible? Something you could never tell the kids?" He looked at me. A shadow flickered in his eyes, but vanished quickly. "Viv, everyone makes mistakes. But I'm not a killer, if that's what you're asking. I'm not talking about murder," I smiled. "I mean something else. Maybe you set someone up at work? Maybe you had trouble with the law?" "No," he said firmly. "I'm clean." Why all these questions? I realized a direct approach wouldn't work. So I changed tactics. "You know," I said thoughtfully. "I sometimes think about the past. About people who are gone. About your first wife, for instance. I know so little about her. She was a bitch," he snapped. "We divorced, thank God. And before her?" I looked him in the eye. "Was there a girl, Alice, I think?" He flinched. His face contorted for a moment. "Where did you hear about Alice?" he asked, his voice turning metallic. "Just heard something somewhere," I shrugged. "Rumor has it you were close. And then she died. She crashed her car," he snapped. "It was a long time ago. And I don't want to discuss it." "Why not?" I pressed. "Did you love her?" "No," he almost shouted. She was in the way. She wanted a baby, and I didn't. She was blackmailing me." "So you solved the problem?" I asked quietly. Michael suddenly stood up abruptly. His eyes were bloodshot. "Have you been spying on me, you bitch?" he hissed. "Did you come here to pump me for information?" "Answer me, Michael," I said, not moving. "Did you kill Alice?" He leaned over me, grabbed my shoulders just like he had back in the living room. "I didn't kill anyone. She got in the car herself. I only cut the lines, but it was a joke. I wanted to scare her, make her back off. I didn't think she'd drive on a mountain road. It was an accident." He was shouting, shaking me. And I was looking at him and smiling. Because I knew. Caleb had recorded it all. The hotel room door burst open. Caleb walked in, followed by 2 police officers. "Mr. Cole," one of them said, "you are under arrest on suspicion of the murder of Alice Morrison and the attempted murder of her unborn child. You have the right to remain silent." Michael let go of me and spun around. He saw Caleb. He saw his eyes. "You," he breathed. "You're her son?" "Yes," said Caleb, "and you just confessed to murdering my mother." The trial was sensational. The mechanic testified. The recording from the hotel room was the key piece of evidence. Michael was sentenced to 15 years in prison. He didn't even last a year. He hanged himself in his cell 8 months later. I received the news of his death strangely. There was no joy, no grief. Just emptiness. And fear. Fear for the kids. How would they live with a father like that? I went to David. By then, he knew everything. Caleb had told him as soon as Michael was arrested. David was in shock, but he understood. He was an amazing man like that. "You did the right thing," he said, holding me. "You helped Caleb. You brought justice for his mother. I'm proud of you." "But I destroyed my children's lives," I whispered. "Their father is a murderer and a suicide." "No," David said firmly. "You saved them from living with a lie. They'll grow up and learn the truth. It will hurt, but they'll know their mother fought for the truth. And that's worth everything." 5 years have passed. David and I are still together. Our home is filled with new meaning. Caleb got married. They have a daughter named Alice. Ben and Olivia are growing up. They know their father's story. We didn't hide the truth from them, but we tried to explain that evil isn't inherited, that they are not him. They see a therapist, they draw, they play, they laugh. Life goes on. Sometimes I stand by the window and watch the sunset. The glass in our house is still big, panoramic. But it's no longer a fragile barrier. Now I know that glass can break, but you can gather the shards and make a mosaic from them. A new one. Beautiful. One that will be stronger than any single sheet. My name is Vivian Blackwood. And my story is about how betrayal and revenge can lead to liberation. And about how the truth, no matter how bitter, is always better than a lie. Even if that lie is as beautiful as a glass house. Story 3. My name is Michael Ryan. I'm 43 years old, and right now I'm sitting in my office writing these lines because if I don't, I'll probably go crazy. The doctor said I need to process the trauma. The psychologist said I need to keep an emotion diary. But I just want someone to know the truth. Not the version that got printed in the newspapers, and not the one my ex-wife tells her girlfriends over glasses of Sauvignon Blanc. But the real truth. This story began 3 years, 4 months, and 12 days ago. I remember that date because that was the last time I was truly happy. Not that I'm counting days or anything. It's just that some dates get burned into your memory with a hot iron. 3 years, 4 months, and 12 days ago, I was standing at the window of my Boston penthouse, looking at the ocean. It was sunset, the sky was burning orange and pink, and I was thinking that life, damn it, had turned out well. I had everything a man could dream of, a loving wife, a healthy son, money I no longer had to count, and a best friend who'd been through hell and back with me. The penthouse was on the 32nd floor. I'd bought it 2 years earlier when our company, Nexus Solutions, got its first major round of funding. Jennifer said it was too flashy, too expensive, that we could find something cozier in the suburbs. But I insisted. I wanted to wake up and see the ocean. I wanted to feel like a winner. That evening, Jennifer came up behind me, wrapped her arms around my waist, and rested her chin on my shoulder. She smelled like shampoo and that perfume I gave her every anniversary, Chanel No. 5. She knew I loved that scent. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "That I can't believe it," I answered honestly. "Sometimes I feel like I'm dreaming and I'll wake up in my old Cambridge apartment, where the radiators barely worked in winter and the only things in the fridge were beer and dried out cheese." She laughed softly. I could feel her breath on my neck. "You achieved everything yourself, Mike. You deserve it." "I achieved the money," I corrected. "You gave me the happiness." I turned to her. In the sunset light, she was incredibly beautiful. Blonde hair, blue eyes, a soft smile. We'd met when I was nobody. She was working as a waitress in a dingy little restaurant where I ate once a week because it was cheap. I'd order the most modest dinner, leave pathetic tips, and sit for a long time with a cup of coffee, pretending to read while actually stealing glances at her. She believed in me when nobody else did. When my parents said it was time to get a real job instead of messing around with computers. When friends laughed at my startups. When investors slammed doors in my face. Jennifer was always there. She read my stupid business plans, listened to my endless rambling about code and markets, fed me when I couldn't afford food. She was my anchor. "Come eat dinner," she said. "Tom's asleep." The nanny left. I ordered sushi. "You ordered sushi?" I was surprised. "You hate sushi. But you love it," she shrugged. That was Jennifer, always thinking about me. We sat in the living room, eating sushi and drinking white wine. City lights twinkled outside, soft music played, and I caught myself thinking that these moments were the most precious. Not presentations, not deals, not numbers in a bank account. But this. A quiet evening with the woman I loved, when we could just be silent and feel at home. "Mike," she said suddenly, "how's David? Have you seen him lately?" "David?" I repeated. "A couple days ago. He's having some problems with his house, something with contractors." "Why?" "Just curious." She looked away. "Did he ever marry Christina?" "No, they broke up. About 3 months ago." "David, he's not made for family, you know." "What is he made for?" she asked, and I thought I heard something strange in her voice. "Business," I chuckled. "David's a sales genius. He can sell anything to anyone. Ice to Eskimos, sand to Bedouin. I've never met such a talented negotiator. And such a good friend," Jennifer added. "Yes," I nodded. "And such a good friend." I didn't know then how ironic those words would sound just months later. David Coleman. We met freshman year of college. They put us in the same dorm room. Me, a geek programmer from a working-class family. Him, the son of a successful lawyer, all confident, in expensive sneakers with a brand-new laptop. The first 2 weeks, we couldn't stand each other. He thought I was a bore, I thought he was a snob. Then something happened that changed everything. My hard drive crashed with my term paper. 2 weeks before the deadline. I sat in our room, staring blankly at the monitor, knowing I'd flunk out because there was no way to recover it. David walked in, saw my face, asked what was wrong. I told him, and without a word, he sat down at his laptop and started searching. An hour later, he found software that could recover some of the data. 3 hours after that, we were both trying to resurrect my paper. At 4 a.m., we succeeded. I hadn't slept for 3 days, but I passed. "Why did you do that?" I asked him then. "What would you have done in my place?" He replied with a question. "I don't know. Probably felt sorry for you." "Well, see," he grinned. "I don't know how to feel sorry. I know how to solve problems." From that day on, we were inseparable. David was a genius at sales and communication. I was a genius at product. The perfect tandem. When I decided to start my own company 5 years after graduation, the first person I called was David. "Are you crazy?" he said, after hearing my idea. "It's brilliant. When do we start?" We started in my apartment. I wrote code, he courted investors. The first 6 months, everyone rejected us. Everyone. We slept 4 hours a night, ate cheap noodles, drank coffee by the gallon. David pawned his watch. I sold my car. We put everything we had into that company. Then came the breakthrough. David found an investor. Somehow, incredibly, he convinced a man who'd never invested in technology to give us $500,000. 2 years later, we were worth $20 million. 5 years later, we were bought by a tech giant from Silicon Valley. The price was so high I still can't say it out loud without smiling. David and I became rich. He bought a mansion in an exclusive neighborhood. I bought my penthouse with the ocean view. It seemed like only a bright future lay ahead. But there was one detail I always overlooked. David loved women. He loved them often, in quantity, with no strings attached. He had a girlfriend, Christina, a nice girl from a good family, an architect. I thought this time it was serious. But as it turned out, I was wrong. A month after the company sale, I stopped by David's new mansion. I wanted to discuss our future plans, show him some ideas for a new fund. A young woman opened the door. Very beautiful, in a short robe, clearly not Christina. "Is David home?" I asked, trying not to stare at her cleavage. "He's busy," she hesitated. David came out of the living room, buttoning his shirt. "Mike," he exclaimed with such joy you'd think he hadn't seen me in 100 years. "What a surprise. Meet Linda, my housekeeper." "Nice to meet you," Linda said and giggled. I understood everything, but I kept quiet. Not my business, after all. Though I felt sorry for Christina. "Does Christina know?" I asked when Linda went to the kitchen. "We broke up," David waved it off. "It was inevitable. I'm sorry." "Don't be. She's a nice girl, but not for me. You know, Mike, I look at you and Jennifer and I envy you. You have real love." "Thanks," I said. "You'll find your soulmate someday too." "I'm not sure," he smirked. "I guess I'm just not made for family." How wrong I was. He was made for it. Made for destroying other people's families. Our son was born in March. Thomas Michael Ryan, 7 pounds 20 inches, screaming loud enough to shake the windows. I stood in the delivery room, holding Jennifer's hand, watching this tiny bundle come into the world. I cried. I honestly cried like a baby. Jennifer, exhausted, sweaty, but incredibly beautiful, looked at me and smiled. "You're a father, Mike," she whispered. "We're parents," I corrected. For 3 days, I barely left their side. I slept in the chair by the crib, got up at night, changed diapers, brought Jennifer water and food. I was happier than I'd ever been. David came on the 4th day. Brought a huge teddy bear, an envelope with money, $5,000, as I later found out, and a bottle of whiskey for me. "Congratulations, Daddy," he said, hugging me. "You've built the perfect family." "Thanks, bro," I answered, and at that moment, I truly believed it. He stayed in the room for about 40 minutes. Stared at Tom for a long time, smiled, joked. Jennifer laughed at his jokes. Everything seemed so natural, so right. "You know," he said when we stepped into the hallway, "I have a proposal for you." "What?" "I want to start a venture fund. Our money should work. While you're on paternity leave, I can handle the organizational stuff. And when you're back, you can join. I need you as a technical expert. Your name in developer circles is a brand." "David, I want to spend time with my family," I shook my head. "I've earned a break." "We won't work around the clock," he insisted. "A couple meetings a week. No more. Think about it." I promised to think. And I did. But a month later, Jennifer suddenly said, "Mike, why don't you agree to David's proposal? You'll go crazy with boredom at home. This way you'll stay busy. We'll manage." "Are you sure?" I was surprised. "Of course. Go. Network with people. Tom and I will wait for Daddy." I was grateful for her support. She'd always supported me, so I agreed. That's where it all started. Not immediately, gradually. Like a cancerous tumor that grows unnoticed, and by the time it's discovered, it's too late to do anything. The first 6 months, the Coleman and Ryan Fund worked perfectly. We found several promising startups, made successful investments. David handled negotiations. I handled technical expertise. We were a team again, like the good old days. Jennifer stayed home with Tom. She found new friends, new hobbies. Yoga on Tuesdays and Thursdays, mommy meetups on Wednesdays, shopping on Fridays. I was glad she wasn't shutting herself in, that she had her own life. Sometimes I noticed strange things. She'd stay out longer than usual, come home distracted. A couple times I called and she didn't answer, then called back saying she'd been in the shower or left her phone in the car. I didn't think much of it. We had a small child, she was tired, she needed an outlet. I trusted her. I trusted both of them. The first red flag was at a restaurant. The three of us, me, Jennifer, and David, were having dinner at an Italian place Jennifer loved. I stepped out to the bathroom for a couple minutes. When I came back, they were sitting very close, talking quietly. David was holding her hand. When they saw me, they pulled apart. "What are you discussing?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Nothing much," David smirked. Jennifer was telling me how Tom sat up by himself for the first time yesterday. I was blown away. 6 months old. "Yeah," I smiled. "He's growing like a weed." I sat down. David withdrew his hand. Jennifer stared at her plate. For a second, I felt the air between them vibrate. But I dismissed it. Nonsense. Just my imagination. The second incident came a couple weeks later. I came home early. A meeting got cancelled. Nobody was home. Jennifer was supposed to be at yoga, Tom with the nanny. I checked the nursery, empty. Went to the bedroom. It was messy, like someone had been in a hurry. Jennifer's phone was on the nightstand. I picked it up. The screen was locked, but I knew the password, our wedding date. I opened her messages. The last one was from David. "Today at 4? I miss you." I froze. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. Maybe it's about work? Maybe they're discussing some project? But why, "I miss you"? I scrolled through the conversation. It was clean. Nothing criminal. No, "I love you," or photos. Just work messages and a few jokes. But the tone was too casual, too intimate for business communication. I put the phone back. Decided not to jump to conclusions. After all, David was my best friend. Jennifer was my wife. I trusted them. An hour later, they came home together. Jennifer carrying Tom, David following. "Oh, Mike, you're already home?" She was surprised. We ran into David at the park. He was walking, so we took a stroll together. "Hey, bro," David shook my hand. Didn't know you were free early. Meeting got cancelled, I replied. We had dinner together. Everything was normal. David joked, Jennifer laughed, Tom fussed. But the residue remained. I couldn't shake the feeling that they sat too close, looked at each other too often. That night, after Jennifer fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Something was wrong. I felt it in my gut. But there was no proof. So I decided to wait. The third incident was the turning point. I stopped by David's office to pick up documents. He wasn't there. His secretary said he'd left for a meeting a couple hours ago. I went into his office to wait and noticed a photograph on his desk, face down. I turned it over. It was Jennifer, holding Tom, a photo I'd taken myself at the park a month ago and sent to David on WhatsApp. But here it was, printed and framed. Why would he print a picture of my wife and put it on his desk? I stood there staring at it. Jennifer smiling, Tom laughing. The perfect picture. But why was it on my best friend's desk? I put the photo back and left. I didn't feel like seeing David anymore. I drove home. Jennifer was in the kitchen making dinner. You're early, she was surprised. Yeah, I answered. David wasn't at the office. I sat at the table and looked at her. She was beautiful. Still the same smile, the same eyes, the same hands cooking dinner for me. I wanted to ask her directly, what's going on between you? But I didn't, because I was afraid of the answer. A week later, I went on a business trip to New York. 3 days of meetings, presentations, negotiations. Jennifer and I talked every night. She said she missed me, that Tom had learned a new word, that she was waiting for me to come home. I believed her. When I got back, I noticed something strange. The house smelled of someone else's cologne. The kind David wore. Did someone visit? I asked. Yeah, David stopped by, she answered too quickly. Brought Tom a gift. A toy car. Then why does it smell like cologne? He sat for a while, had coffee. I nodded. Went to the bedroom. On the bed lay one of my shirts, crumpled. One I hadn't worn. Were you ironing? I asked. What? The shirt. Did you iron it? No, she came over and looked. Strange. Maybe Tom was playing with it? Tom was 1.5. He couldn't reach shirts in the closet. But I said nothing. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there listening to Jennifer breathe. Evenly, calmly. Like someone with a clear conscience. Or like someone who knows how to lie. I decided to hire a detective. Not because I wanted to catch her cheating. But because I wanted proof that I was wrong. That all these strange occurrences were just coincidences. That my paranoia was just fatigue and stress. I found the detective through the lawyer who handled our company sale. Mark Sterling, a retired FBI agent. Dry, methodical, no unnecessary emotion. He listened to me, asked a few questions, and said, Mr. Ryan, I'll take this case, but I warn you now. If there's something there, I'll find it. Are you ready to know the truth? Yes, I answered. I didn't know then how right Mark would be. For a month, I lived on pins and needles. I met with David, hugged Jennifer, played with Tom, and constantly waited for Mark's call. He called rarely, said little, working on it. Got something, but too early to talk. And then that day came. Friday evening. David had flown to San Francisco for negotiations. I was alone in the office, sorting through papers. I needed an old contract, and I knew David kept a copy in his desk. We had no secrets from each other. I knew the code to his desk. I opened the drawer. The contract was on top. I took it and was about to close the drawer when I noticed a thick brown envelope with no markings. Something made me open it. There were photographs inside. Many photographs. The first one. Jennifer and David kissing in some bar. On the back, a date, 2 years ago. A couple months after Tom was born. The second. Them entering a hotel. Jennifer in that red dress I bought her for her birthday. The third. Them in a car. David driving, Jennifer's head on his shoulder. The fourth, fifth, 10th. Them together in different places. In the park, at restaurants, at the hotel again. Dated within the last few months. I looked at those photos and felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. Like someone had turned off all my emotions. I just numbly flipped through them, studying faces, trying to find something, anything, that would explain why. There was another paper in the envelope. A legal document. I unfolded it. It was a trust fund agreement. Grantor. David Coleman. Beneficiary. Thomas Ryan. Amount. $500,000. I stared at the paper, uncomprehending. Why would David set up a fund for my son? Why didn't he tell me? Why hide it in his desk? I read the document again. And then I noticed what I'd missed the first time. The beneficiary's date of birth. It matched Tom's birth date. But the name was different. I froze. Read it again. It said, Thomas Coleman. Coleman, not Ryan. Coleman. I sat in David's chair, staring at that paper. The world around me ceased to exist. All I could hear was my own heartbeat, pounding in my ears, my temples, my throat. Tom wasn't my son. Tom was David's son. Everything clicked into place. Their closeness, their glances, their messages. Her lateness, her excuses, her strange behavior. The photo on the desk. The trust fund. All this time, they'd been together. All these years. I don't know how long I sat in that chair. Maybe an hour. Maybe 3. At some point, I took out my phone and dialed David. He didn't answer. I dialed Jennifer. Hi, honey. Her voice was cheerful. How's work? Tom's asleep. I'm watching a show. I'll be home soon, I said. My voice sounded alien, icy. Great, I'll be waiting. I put the photos in my pocket, took the document too. Turned off the office lights, took the elevator down, got in my car. The drive home took 40 minutes. I don't remember making it. I only remember staring at the red lights ahead and thinking, why? Lights were on at home. I went in. Jennifer sat on the couch in her robe, drinking tea. When she saw my face, she started to smile, but the smile died immediately. Mike, what happened? Silently, I pulled out the photos and threw them on the coffee table. She looked at them, slowly, as if in slow motion, her face changed. First confusion, then recognition, then horror. Mike, I cut her off. Just tell me one thing. Is it true? She started crying. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She covered her face with her hands. I'm sorry, she sobbed. Please forgive me. How long? What? How long did it go on? She looked up at me. Red, swollen eyes. Since Tom was 3 months old. It happened once. I was depressed. You were always at work. David was there. He comforted me. And then it kept happening. I tried to stop, honestly. But he said if I left, he'd tell you everything himself. And that he'd destroy your business. I was scared, Mike. I was so scared. You were scared? I laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. You were scared he'd tell me the truth? But sleeping with him behind my back didn't scare you? I love you, she whispered. I've always loved only you. Don't, I snapped. Don't you dare say that. You slept with my best friend for 2 years. 2 years, Jennifer. That's not a mistake. That's not an accident. That's a choice. You made it every day, every night. She was silent, just crying. And this? I pulled out the trust document. What's this? She looked at the paper and suddenly stopped crying. Her face went white as chalk. Where did you get that? Found it in David's desk. Explain. It's a fund for Tom. David wanted to secure his future. Why does it say, Thomas Coleman? Silence. Long, heavy silence. She looked at me, and in her eyes was something I'd never seen before. Fear? No. Regret? Not that either. Resignation. Tom. She started, then stopped. What about Tom? Tom isn't your son, Michael. The words hung in the air. I heard them, but couldn't process them. I'd already known, after reading the document. But hearing it from her, that was completely different. I know, I said. My voice was flat, like I was discussing the weather. I figured it out. You figured it out? She was surprised. How? The last name in the document. Coleman, not Ryan. She lowered her head. I'm sorry. Were you sleeping with him before the wedding? No, she exclaimed. No, Mike. I swear. It happened after. Tom was born, and I wasn't myself. And he was there. He was always there. I was there too, I said quietly. I got up with Tom at night. I changed his diapers. I taught him to walk. I loved him. And you knew all along he wasn't mine. And you said nothing. I couldn't tell you. You would have hated me. You would have hated Tom. I would never have hated Tom, I said. I would have hated you. And his father. I stood up, walked to the window. Outside was the city, lights, life. Inside me was emptiness. Leave, I said. Mike, please. Leave now, or I'll do something I'll regret later. She stood up, threw a coat over her robe, grabbed her purse. At the door, she stopped. Tom, you won't throw Tom out? I turned and looked at her. For the first time all evening, I felt not pain, not anger, but something else. Pity? For her? For myself? Tom stays here, I said. He's my son, not by blood, but by everything else that matters. You leave. She went out. The door closed. I was alone. I went upstairs to the nursery. Tom slept in his crib, arms spread, sucking his thumb. So defenseless, so dear. I looked at him, trying to find David's features in his face. The shape of his eyes. The curve of his lips. They were there. How could I have been so blind? I sat by his crib until morning. Watched him sleep, listened to him breathe, and thought about how my life was over. Not that I was going to die, but that everything I believed in had been a lie. Love, friendship, family, all lies. In the morning, David called. I didn't answer. He called again and again. I declined. Then a message came. We need to talk. I replied. Where are you? He named a hotel in San Francisco. I said I'd fly out. 4 hours later, I was on a plane. I don't remember getting to the airport, checking in, sitting down. I only remember staring out the window at the clouds, thinking, why? The Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco is old school class. Marble, chandeliers, expensive carpets. David loved places like that. I went up to his room on the 7th floor. He opened the door himself. He looked like hell. Unshaven, red eyes, wrinkled shirt. Come in, he said. I went in. The room was huge, with a view of the Golden Gate Bridge. David went to the bar, poured himself whiskey. Want some? No. He drank it down, poured another. Mike, I know you're angry. You have every right, but I'm asking you to hear me out. I'm listening. It wasn't planned. I swear. It just happened. She was depressed. I was trying to support her. And somehow it just happened. Just happened, I repeated. For 2 years, it just happened. He sighed. I tried to stop. Honestly. But we couldn't. It was stronger than us. I said. You're talking about my wife. The mother of my child. Your child? He smirked. Mike, Tom isn't your child. And you know it. Yeah, I know. Thanks for enlightening me. The trust fund with his last name was a pretty convincing clue. He froze. You found the document? Yeah, in your desk. You hide things poorly. He paced the room, ran his hand through his hair. I wanted to provide for him. In case something happened. In case something happened to you? Or to me? Stop it, Mike. I'm not your enemy. I laughed. Loudly, hysterically. Not my enemy? You fucked my wife for 2 years. You're the father of my child, the child I raised as my own. You lied to my face every single day. And you say you're not my enemy? I love her, he said quietly. Those 3 words finished me. Not the anger, not the betrayal, not the lies. Those 3 words. You love her? Yes. And her? She loves me too. But she's afraid of losing you. Afraid of losing Tom. Afraid of everything. Tom, I repeated. Tom, who is your son? Whom I raised. I didn't ask you to raise him. You didn't ask. You just let me do it while you fucked behind my back. David stepped closer. Mike, I know I've been a total bastard. But I want to make it right. I'll leave the fund. I'll give you my share. Just don't destroy everything. Please. You think it's about money? I asked. You think I flew here to negotiate? Why did you come? I came to tell you 2 things. First, you're dead to me. I don't know anyone named David Coleman. Second, I will destroy you. Take everything. You'll wish you'd never been born. David smirked. You? Destroy me? Mike, you're a good programmer, but in the big world, you're nobody. I have lawyers, connections, money. You have nothing. You don't even know what's happening in your own house. I clenched my fists, so hard my nails dug into my palms. See you in court, I said, and left. On the flight back, I sat staring into space. Next to me was a woman with a child. A boy about 5 kept tugging his mother's sleeve, asking questions. She answered in a tired voice, but patiently. I watched them and thought about Tom. About how he wakes up in the morning and calls for me. About how he laughs when I toss him in the air. About how he says, Daddy. Daddy. I'm not his father. All the way home, I tried to understand what I was feeling. Pain? No, pain was too weak a word. It was as if someone had removed my soul, put it through a meat grinder, and stuffed it back in. I breathed, I walked, I talked, but inside was emptiness. At home, the nanny, Mrs. Clark, was waiting. An older woman who'd cared for Tom since birth. She looked at me with concern. Mr. Ryan, are you all right? You look terrible. I'm fine, Mrs. Clark. Where's Tom? Asleep. Put him down an hour ago. Thank you. You can go. She left. I went up to the nursery. Tom was sleeping. I stood over his crib and looked at him. Small, defenseless, dear. I touched his cheek. He stirred in his sleep, smiled at something. I love you, I whispered. Whatever happens, I love you. The next day, I called Mark Sterling. Mark, I need everything. Everything on David Coleman. His finances, his connections, his dirty dealings. And on Jennifer too. Every move they've made in the last 3 years. This will be expensive, Michael, he warned. Money's not an issue. 3 days later, we met in his office. A small space downtown, no signs, just a plaque reading, consulting. Inside. Modest furniture, several monitors, shelves full of files. Mark laid out the first results. David Coleman, he began. A very interesting character. Your fund, Michael, is just the tip of the iceberg. David was moving most of the money through offshore accounts. He used your name and reputation to attract investors, then funneled funds to accounts in the Cayman Islands and Cyprus. Some of that money ended up in shell companies. Some paid for his personal expenses. How much? By my estimate, about $3 million in the last year alone. I whistled. And me? You're clean. David was very careful with paperwork. All documents are signed by him personally. Your signature only appears on legitimate deals. He set himself up, not you. Why? Because you were his cover. If something went wrong, he could have blamed you. But apparently he trusted you enough not to set you up. Trusted? I snorted. He was fucking my wife and stealing from me. That's trust? That's calculation, Mark corrected. He knew that if you fell under suspicion, the business would collapse. And if the business collapsed, his income source would collapse too. It was in his interest to keep you clean. What else? Mark turned a page. David has serious connections with people the FBI has been investigating for years. We're talking major financial fraud with venture capital and money laundering through startups. Your fund may have been one of the tools. I leaned back in my chair. Jesus. He set me up. Not exactly. Like I said, you're clean. But reputationally, it's a hit. If this comes out, you'll be dragged through interrogations. What about Jennifer? Mark pulled out another folder. Jennifer Ryan, your wife. Did she know about David's schemes? I don't know. I doubt it. She never cared about finances. Wrong. Mark handed me a document. This is her account statement from the last 2 years. See these transfers? I looked. Regular amounts, roughly $5,000 to $10,000 each, transferred to an account in her name at another bank. Where are they from? From David's offshore accounts. He was paying her. I felt the blood drain from my face. He was paying my wife? Looks that way. I don't know for what exactly. Maybe for silence. Maybe for something else. I closed my eyes. The picture kept getting worse. What else? Something strange. David recently registered a company in the British Virgin Islands. Name. Tom's Future Limited. Guess who's listed as beneficiary? Tom. Yes. Your son. Or rather, his son. Why would he do that? I don't know. Maybe trying to secure an inheritance away from potential problems. Maybe preparing for something. I stared at the documents, unable to believe my eyes. 2 people I'd loved more than anything in the world had turned out to be monsters. She'd sold herself for money. He'd stolen from me and paid her. Mark, I said, I want to destroy him. Completely. Leave him with nothing. That's possible. But it'll take time and evidence. And one more thing. What? You'll need Jennifer's help. I laughed. Seriously? Quite serious. She's the key witness. If she confirms that David gave her money, that he threatened her, that he knew you were unaware of his financial dealings, that's an ironclad case. She'll never go for it. Why? Is she afraid of him? Or still in love with him? I don't know. Probably both. Then you'll have to convince her. For the next 2 weeks, I dealt with the divorce. Robert Stone, my lawyer, was a true professional. He explained all the nuances of divorce proceedings in Massachusetts. Given that the child isn't yours, and that adultery is proven, we have strong standing, he said. She won't get half your assets. At most, child support, but that should come from the biological father. Unless you agree to voluntary payments. I'm not paying her anything, I said. Let David pay. David might refuse. Then the court could order you to pay, as the man who raised the child and acknowledged paternity. But we can contest that. Contest it. Jennifer filed a countersuit. Her lawyer demanded half of everything I owned, plus child support for Tom, plus compensation for emotional distress. The total was astronomical. I sat in Robert's office listening to him read the suit. They claim you emotionally suppressed her, that she was a victim of circumstances, that David seduced and used her. That's ridiculous, I said. She chose this. Prove it. I have photos. With dates. 2 years worth. That's not enough. Photos prove the fact of adultery, but they don't prove she did it voluntarily and knowingly. We need something more. Like what? For example, her confession. Or evidence that she received money from David. I remembered the statements Mark had shown me. I have something, I said. Transfers to her account. From David's offshore accounts. Robert perked up. That changes things. If she took money from him, it wasn't just an affair. It was a relationship she hid and for which she was compensated. She'll say she didn't know where the money came from. Let her say it. The court will investigate. If it turns out she knew about the money's origin, she faces complicity in financial crimes. That's serious leverage. A week later came the first hearing. We met at the courthouse. Jennifer looked thinner, paler, but still beautiful. She wore a business suit, her hair in a bun. She looked at me with something I couldn't identify. Not regret, not anger, more like pleading. Mike, she said, approaching me in the hallway, can we talk privately? We have nothing to discuss. Please, it's important. About Tom. I sighed. Fine. 5 minutes. We stepped aside. Tom asks about you every day, she said. He doesn't understand why Daddy doesn't come. He cries at night. My heart clenched. I miss him too. Then come. You have the right. You're his father. I'm not his father, I said harshly. To him, you're his father. And you always will be. Mike, I know I did a terrible thing. I'm not asking for forgiveness. But Tom isn't to blame. Don't punish him for my mistakes. I'm not punishing him. I don't know how to look at him now, knowing he's David's son. Then don't look at him as David's son. Look at him as Tom. Who loves you? Who calls you daddy? Who's waiting for you? I was silent. She was right, and that infuriated me. I'll think about it, I said. Thank you. She turned to leave, but I stopped her. Jennifer, I know about the money. The transfers from David. She froze, slowly turned. Her face went even paler. What are you talking about? Don't. I've seen the statements. He paid you. Regularly. For what? She was silent. For keeping quiet? For continuing to play the happy wife? For not telling me the truth? It's not like that, she whispered. Then what? Explain it to me. I can't or won't. She looked at me. Tears stood in her eyes. If I tell you, he'll kill me. Or take Tom. He has connections, Mike. He can do anything. In prison, he won't be able to do anything. You're going to put him in prison? Yes. She shook her head. You don't know David. He's always one step ahead. We'll see. The hearing went quickly. The judge set a temporary visitation schedule. I could see Tom twice a week with a psychologist present. It was humiliating and painful, but better than nothing. 2 days later, I went to their place. Jennifer had rented a small apartment in the suburbs. Modest but clean. Tom sat on the floor playing with toy cars. When he saw me, he jumped up and ran. Daddy's here. I scooped him up. He wrapped his arms around my neck, buried his face in my shoulder. I smelled him, felt his warmth, his love. And my heart shattered. Hey, champ, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. How are you? Good. Where were you? I missed you. I was on a business trip. Working. Mommy said you won't live with us anymore. Is that true? I looked at Jennifer. She stood in the doorway, biting her lip. Mommy and I decided it's better for us to live apart, I said. But that doesn't mean I left you. I'll always be your daddy. Got it? Got it, he nodded. Will you come visit? I will. Promise. We played for 2 hours. Built towers with blocks, raced cars, read books. Tom laughed, ran, jumped. And I watched him and thought, how could I not love him? What difference does it make whose blood runs through him? He's mine, by every law except biology. When it was time to leave, Tom burst into tears. Don't go. Daddy, don't go. I barely calmed him down. Promised to come back in 2 days. Jennifer walked me to the door. Thank you, she said quietly. For coming. I didn't come for you. I know. I left. Sat in my car for 10 minutes, trying to compose myself. Then I called Mark. Mark, I need everything you have on David. And I want to know about those people he's connected with. The FBI ones. Why? I want to offer them a deal. A week later, I met with FBI agent Thomas Granger. He was tall, lean, about 50, with tired eyes and a firm handshake. We sat in a cafe near the federal building. Mr. Ryan, he began, Mark Sterling said you have information on David Coleman. More than information. I have proof of his financial crimes. I handed him the folder. Granger studied the documents for about 20 minutes. Silently, intently. I drank coffee and stared out the window. "This is serious," he finally said. "Very serious. Where did you get this?" "I hired a detective when I found out my wife was cheating on me with David. And that my son is actually his son." Granger raised an eyebrow. "Tough break. That's an understatement. You understand these documents could put him away for years?" "That's the idea. But there's a problem. We need someone to corroborate this in court. Ideally, your detective. But he's a private citizen. His testimony could be challenged." "Mark is willing to cooperate." "Good. But we need more. We need someone from inside. Someone who worked with David and knows the details." I thought about it. He had an accountant. Can't remember his name. But Mark said David screwed him over. "Find him. He'll be our key witness." 2 weeks later, Mark found the accountant. His name was Richard Spencer. He'd worked for David for 3 years, handling his personal accounts and helping with offshore transfers. When David refused to pay him a promised bonus, Richard held a grudge. We met at the same cafe. Richard was a nervous, twitchy man about 40, with constantly darting eyes. "I'm scared," he said immediately. "David's dangerous. He has connections. He could have me killed." "The FBI will protect you," I replied. "If you agree to testify." "What about my involvement?" "I was complicit. If you help put David away, they'll reduce your sentence. Maybe probation." Richard hesitated. I could see it on his face. "How much?" he asked. "What? How much will you pay?" "This isn't a deal. Either you help justice, or you go to trial with David." He sighed. "Fine. I'll do it." Richard told us many interesting things. It turned out David wasn't just stealing from the fund. He was using it to launder money for criminal organizations. Millions passed through our fund and ended up in offshore accounts. David took a percentage, while investors thought they were funding startups. "Who are these people?" Granger asked. "I don't know names. Only code names. North, South, East." David communicated with them through encrypted channels. "Where's the proof?" "I have copies of their correspondence. And recordings of conversations." David sometimes forgot I was listening. Richard pulled out a flash drive and placed it on the table. "It's all here. Take it." Granger took the drive. "If this checks out, you'll get immunity." "Thank you." Richard left. I watched him go. "You think he's telling the truth?" I asked. "We'll verify," Granger replied. "But if he is, we've got everything we need to put David away forever." It took a month to verify everything. The FBI dug through documents, decrypted recordings, traced the criminal connections. David seemed oblivious. He kept doing business, flying to meetings, courting investors. I wasn't idle either. The divorce from Jennifer was nearing its end. We agreed I'd see Tom every weekend, pay child support voluntarily, not court-ordered, and not seek custody. Jennifer kept Tom. It wasn't ideal, but at least it was stable. One evening, Jennifer called. Her voice was frightened. "Mike, I need to meet you. Urgently." "What happened?" "Not over the phone. It's important. We met at a park." She came without Tom, left him with a sitter. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, trembling hands. "David knows," she said. "Knows what?" "He knows you met with the FBI. Someone told him. He's furious." "How do you know?" "He called me, threatened me, said if I don't help him, he'll take Tom and leave the country." "What does he want from you?" "I don't know. Maybe he thinks I can influence you. Or that I know something that could hurt him." "Do you?" She looked at me. A long, heavy look. "Yes." "What?" "I know where he keeps the main documents. Not at the office, not at home. Somewhere else." "Where?" "If I tell you, he'll kill me. If you don't, he'll kill you anyway when he realizes you're useless." She covered her face with her hands. "God, why is this happening to me?" I looked at her and felt no pity. Only exhaustion. "Jennifer, you chose this path. You slept with him, took his money, lied to me. Now you have to pay the price." "You're right," she whispered. "You're absolutely right. I did terrible things. But Tom is innocent. I don't want him hurt. Then help us put David away. It's the only way to protect Tom." She looked up at me. "Do you promise Tom will be okay?" "I promise. I won't let David take him." She nodded. "Okay, I'll tell you." Jennifer revealed that David had a secret office in an industrial zone outside the city. He'd rented it through a shell company and kept all his important documents there, including the ones that could incriminate him. She'd been there once, when David brought her to show off how clever he was. I passed the information to Granger. The FBI put the office under surveillance. 3 days later, they got a warrant. The operation went down early in the morning. David had just arrived to pick up some papers. When agents stormed in, he tried to flee through the back, but they caught him. Granger called me at 9 a.m. We got him, Michael. Red-handed. The office was full of documents, evidence, even weapons. Perfect, I exhaled. He's asking to meet you. Why? Says he wants to explain himself. That you need to hear his side. I'm not interested. Michael, if he makes a deal and starts giving up his partners, it could help the investigation. Talk to him. For the case. I agreed. Not for the case. For myself. To look into the eyes of the man who'd destroyed my life and tell him everything I thought of him. The meeting took place at the Federal Building. A small interrogation room, a table, 2 chairs, a one-way mirror. David was brought in wearing handcuffs. He was unshaven, in a wrinkled suit, but his eyes still held that dangerous spark. Mike, he said, sitting across from me. Thanks for coming. Don't thank me. What did you want to say? I wanted to explain. It's too late for explanations. Maybe, but you should know the truth. I know the truth. You fucked my wife. You stole my money. You're the father of my child. Your child? He smirked. He was never yours, Mike. You just raised him while I secured his future. You secured his future with stolen money? That money was earned by me. The fund was my doing too. Without me, you'd still be in your garage with your laptop. Without you, I'd have an honest life. Honest? He laughed. There's nothing honest in this world, Mike. You just didn't want to see it. Why did you do it? I asked. You had everything. Money, success, friends. Why did you need to destroy my family? He looked at me. For a second, the mask slipped, and I saw the real David. Tired, angry, alone. Because I envied you, he said quietly. Always envied you. You had talent I didn't have. You had Jennifer, who loved you, not your money. You had a son you adored. I had nothing. Only money and women who didn't give a damn about me. So you decided to take everything from me? I didn't take. I just took what I could. Jennifer came to me herself. She was unhappy with you. Unhappy? I couldn't believe my ears. She was happy. We had a family. You had an illusion. The reality was, you were always at work, and she sat at home with the baby, feeling abandoned. I gave her what you didn't. Attention, care, understanding. You gave her money and a dick. That too, he grinned. But not just that. I listened to her. I understood her. You only saw her as the mother of your child and an accessory for your parties. You're lying. No, Mike. I'm telling the truth. The truth you don't want to hear. I looked at him and realized there was some truth in his words. I did work a lot. I did spend less time with Jennifer than I should have. But that didn't justify her betrayal. And it certainly didn't justify his. Even so, I said, you could have talked to me. Could have said you saw a problem. Instead, you chose betrayal. Talk to you? He smirked. You'd have told me to fuck off. You always thought you were better than everyone else. Smarter, more talented, more successful. You wouldn't have listened. You never gave me a chance. There were never any chances. We fell silent. I looked at him, trying to understand what I felt. Anger? Pain? Hatred? All of it together. What now? I asked. Now? I'll get maybe 15 years. Maybe more. My lawyers say there's a chance for a deal. If I give up my partners, I'll get less. And you'll do it? What do you think? Of course I will. I've got nothing to lose. And Tom? Have you thought about Tom? He looked at me. Something like pain flickered in his eyes. Tom, I'd like to be his father. But I'm not cut out for it. You'll do better. You're giving him up? I'm giving up everything. Money, freedom, future. Let Tom at least have a normal life. I stood up. Goodbye, David. Goodbye, Mike. I walked out. In the hallway, Granger was waiting. Well, fine. He'll take the deal. Perfect. That simplifies things enormously. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think I could have prevented this? If I'd spent more time with my family, worked less? Granger looked at me. A long, understanding look. Michael, betrayal doesn't depend on how much time you spend at home. Betrayal is a choice. Jennifer made hers. David made his. You had nothing to do with it. Thanks, I said. I needed to hear that. David's trial lasted 6 months. He testified against his partners and got his sentence reduced to 8 years. He's in a Pennsylvania prison now. Sometimes I think about him. Not with hatred, not with pain. Just as someone I used to know. Jennifer. She's more complicated. We didn't reconcile. There's too much pain between us to just forget and move on. But we've learned to communicate for Tom's sake. She doesn't ask for forgiveness anymore, and I don't blame her anymore. We just keep living. Tom's in school now. He's an honor student, plays soccer, loves computer games. I adopted him officially. David waived all rights, and now Tom bears my last name. To him, I'm his only father. And I'll do everything to make sure he never learns the truth. At least until he's old enough to understand and forgive on his own. I sold the penthouse. Too many memories. Bought a small house in the suburbs with a garden and swings. Every weekend, Tom comes to stay, and we spend time together. Grill meat, go fishing, watch movies. My new business is a small IT company. We make educational software. No venture funds, no big investors. Just work that I enjoy and that supports my family. Sometimes I think about how much my life has changed in these 3 years. If someone had told me then, standing at that penthouse window, that 3 years later I'd be living alone, raising another man's son, and hating someone I'd considered a brother, I'd have laughed. But life is strange. It likes to throw surprises. Today, Tom turned 7. We had a party in my garden. His school friends came, their parents, even Jennifer stopped by for a couple hours. Tom was happy. He ran around the lawn with the other kids, laughing, blowing out candles on his cake. Later that evening, when everyone had gone, we sat on the porch watching the stars. Tom snuggled against me and asked, "Daddy, do you love me?" I hugged him tighter. "More than anything in the world, champ. And you'll always love me? Always. Even when I grow up. Even when you grow up and get old and bald like me." He laughed. That pure, childish laugh. "You're not bald, Daddy. You have hair." "Well, for now." We were quiet. Then he asked, "Daddy, why doesn't Mommy live with us?" I sighed. A hard question. I'd been expecting it, but it was still difficult. Because Mommy and I decided it's better for us to live apart. But that doesn't mean we don't love you. We both love you very much. Do you love each other? We were good friends to each other. And we're still friends now. It just worked out this way. Okay, he yawned. I'm sleepy. Come on, I'll tuck you in. I put him to bed, kissed him goodnight, and left. Stood in the hallway listening to him breathe in his sleep. My son, not by blood, but by spirit. The most precious thing I have. I went back to the porch, poured myself some whiskey, and sat down in the chair. Trees rustled outside, a dog barked somewhere, the sky was full of stars. Life goes on, and it's not so bad. I think about revenge, about how I wanted to destroy David, and in some ways I succeeded. But it didn't bring happiness. The real revenge turned out to be something else. It was in being able to save myself. To forgive. To love a boy who wasn't mine by blood. To build a new life from the ruins of the old. If I could go back and change something, I would. Probably. But life doesn't have a reset button. Only a continue button. And I'm continuing. For myself. For Tom. For the future that can still be built.